So this is our reading today from Luke. And taking the 12, he said to them, "See, we are going up to Jerusalem, and everything that is written about the Son of Man by the prophets will be accomplished. For he will be delivered over to the Gentiles, and will be mocked and shamefully treated and spit upon. And after flogging him, they will kill him, and on the third day he will rise." But they understood none of these things. This saying was hidden from them, and they did not grasp what was said. Now, this saying was hidden from them. What interested me about that, first of all, it's strange that here is Jesus talking plainly. Normally he's speaking in parables. Here he's talking straight out, and they don't get it. That's odd, but it also ties in with what we've discussed in previous semesters, and that is it's using a kind of passive form of speech, and it's easy to mistake this was hidden from them. It's easy to mistake that phrase and assuming that God is hiding it from them. It's sort of like Pharaoh's heart being hardened and not listening to Moses when Moses demands that he let God's people go. And it's like other instances of this when Jesus talks about how he speaks in parables, because otherwise people would understand and be healed, but they have eyes and see not, and ears and hear not. And it sounds to us as if this is an active kind of curse that God places upon the people, whereas in fact, it's a description of how reality works. So let's take a look at that line in particular, and here's how you do it. You go to Bible Hub. This is Luke 18:34. So if you Google Luke 18:34 Bible Hub, you find, I'll show you what you find here, at least at the beginning, so that you see the whole page. You find all these different translations. Many of you who have had this class before know how this works. If you want the context, you click on the right. If you want these various translations, you look on the left. But sometimes, like this says, they did not comprehend the things that were said. That's actually a poor translation once you see the original Greek. They did not grasp what was said is also not good. Really, it's was hidden from them is a better translation. They did not know what Jesus was talking about. That's kind of a paraphrase. And none of these things understood, and this saying was hid from them, and they were not knowing the things said. That's a literal translation. Now let's first of all look at that Greek. So here we go. You scroll down here and you start seeing the Greek word for word. But the disciples did not understand any of these things. The meaning was hidden from them. The word is kekramenon, which comes from the word crypto. Now, crypto, you might hear of cryptocurrency, but crypto is like a cryptogram. It's something hidden. And then if you want more info, you go to these commentaries. I think this is the best commentary for this particular verse. And let's go down to what this is, this 1834. So you scroll and you get down to 1834. This saying was hidden from them. This is Ellicott's commentary. The verb so rendered, meaning the original Greek, occurs here only in the New Testament, that form of the verb. Its precise meaning is covered or veiled rather than hidden. Something that's covered with a kind of a cloth or a veil to keep it from being seen. Some such thought of dimmed perception was in St. Paul's mind when he said of the unbelieving Jews that as they heard the law and the prophets, the veil was upon their hearts. You can click on this and go to that particular reading, 2 Corinthians, what was it again? 2 Corinthians 3:15, and you can see the context here. So he's referring us to St. Paul. St. Paul says to the Corinthians, we are not like Moses, we Christians, who would put a veil over his face to keep the Israelites from gazing at the end of what was fading away. Moses would literally put a veil over his face when he came down from the mountain because his face shone so brightly that the people of God were afraid of him. But their minds were closed. So Paul is comparing the veiling of Moses to the closing of the minds of the Israelites. For to this day, the same veil remains at the reading of the Old Covenant. It has not been lifted because only in Christ can it be removed. He's talking about a practice at the synagogue when the Old Testament would be read, the reader would have his face veiled, but then he's talking about this symbolically. And even to this day, when Moses is read, a veil covers their hearts. But whenever anyone turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. And remember, when Jesus was crucified, the veil of the temple was torn in two from the top to the bottom, the veil that covered the Holy of Holies. An unveiling in Greek would be an apocalypse. That's what that means, an unveiling, a revealing. And so getting back to the original Luke 18:34, the disciples don't get it. There's a kind of call or veil over their hearts, over their minds and ears. Even when Jesus speaks plainly, it's covered or hidden from them, not necessarily actively by God, who's saying, I don't want you to know, but it's the result of something dull or dead inside of them. They cannot imagine the excitement or the glory of this. When you're a teacher, and maybe you've noticed this as a student, you might find a piece of music that you love and you share it with a friend and it doesn't move them at all. Or you might find a passage in a work of literature that excites you. When you're a teacher, I have a student who was an independent study student this past semester, and it was all about poetry. And she and I had the same level of excitement about certain lines and certain poems. And it was a wonderful experience for me because we both were able to say, look at that, listen to that. But there are some people who can't do that. And this is the mystery. This is part of the mystery of who we are. It's a kind of inertia. It's a kind of resistance or recalcitrance. It's a kind of dullness. And in the Psalms today, we are told that people have eyes that do not see and ears that do not hear because they become like their idols that they build, who have painted on eyes, and in this particular case, no ears whatsoever. And so it's an outgrowth of who these people are, and it's not what we want to be. Eventually, the apostles wake up, but they don't believe Jesus. First of all, they're stunned that he's crucified, and they certainly don't believe that he's risen from the dead when the women come and tell them. They don't believe that for a minute. They don't even believe it when Peter and John get to the empty tomb and find the coverings and so forth left behind by Jesus. They still don't believe it until they see him, much like Thomas, the doubting apostle. So there is something about the apostles and about us, and about not only the Jews that St. Paul speaks of in 2 Corinthians, but all of humanity. We tend to be dull, and part of education is waking us up. If you're teaching poetry, you want your students to develop an ear for poetry. Or if you're teaching music appreciation, an ear for what makes a certain piece of music beautiful, or for the various elements in music. And if you're not open to it, it will be hidden from you. Or, in effect, it's as if it were hidden from you. But that's mysterious. Think about that. Maybe it's related to Psalm 115, which talks about people becoming like their idols, the way we often start resembling our pets. At any rate, education is about lifting the veil. At least that's what it should be about, if you're interested enough to see what's behind it.